Lois Lane, number 6. Greg Rucka writing with Mike Perkins on the art. And I'm very curious to hear what Connor thought of this, given that this was the one that most directly tied into things going on in other books that he's not reading.
Yeah.
Yes. I'll cut to it. I felt this had little to no impact for me, having not seen it.
Do you know what's funny about this? I think this is the best issue so far.
No, I get that. I feel like if I'd cared about this story and had seen all this, I understand why. I can see the craft in this as to why this works. If you've read that, having not, and just kind of coming into this, aftermath, it's kind of lost all the meaning. While objectively I can see it's very good. A few little nitpicks. I
get way more out of this issue with Rucka writing the relationship between Sam and Lois than I have with Bendis even in Leviathan. And it's a little bit unfair because that wasn't the point of Leviathan was their relationship. But the scenes where they just felt like part of the plot. Whereas here, Rucka gets to decompress. And it actually, I was like, oh man, Sam Lane's gone. And in the same month where we lose Alfred officially and lose Sam Lane officially, why am I more sad with Sam Lane? It was a character I don't really care about.
It's because I didn't care when Sam Lane died. I mean, I wasn't like happy he was dead or anything like that. But it was like, okay, Sam Lane's a character who's around. He serves his plot purpose usually. This one issue, which the structure of this is that his funeral's playing out, and then the wake afterwards as well. And as we see, like a couple of pages, typically silent, barring one or two little moments, typically silent pages of the funeral in the rain, very moody, very atmospheric. We keep flashing back to different times in Lois's life with her father, one of which when she's a teenager, and it's just how she would challenge him as a teenager. The first time they really kind of spoke about Superman when, he was kind of new on the scene and she clearly had a thing for him and he was kind of calling her out for that. And then later on, kind of down the line. And my favourite part of all this actually is the one that happens, because we'd seen the scene before. I can't remember if it was Action Comics or if it was Leviathan or if it was whatever book it was in. But when Lois told Sam that Clark was Superman, whatever book that happened in, I really like that, where he comes back, because all throughout the issue, every flashback, you're kind of like, okay, obviously it's showing us all these emotional beats in Lois's past with him, but I'm still kind of coming out on her side every single time. And what I like is that last flashback where he comes back to talk about Clark being Superman, even though he can't really just jump and be okay with it because of who he is, that's the one and only time we ever see him say, I'm going to try because you're my daughter and I love you, and I'm going to try and be okay with it and deal with it. And to end on that beat is the last flashback. I think it was the last flashback. I think is the perfect kind of thing to just make us care that he's dead. So he's like, no, despite who he was going to try for Lois, and that's what the relationship was. It was despite all the fighting, all the turmoil and everything, he would always try and be a father. And it was good. It was real crafted.
And she finally has her breakdown on the last page because it was, he could have understood. He could have believed in Superman. And I was just like, oh man, Rucka.
Yeah, that final line's fantastic. He could have chose to believe in Superman. He was almost there. He almost was ready to believe in Superman. It's good.
It makes me look back at Leviathan too to see why they went after him so hard, right? And they used his tactics, but they had to take him out because they can't have him running counter to them. Like, imagine now a world where Sam Lane does believe in Superman.
Even just think about what does
that mean?
What this represents in terms of the story. Like we talk about how like sometimes it'll be kind of meta and it'll talk about the characters, and we talk often about Superman, like believing in Superman, all going along with the sort of jaded idea that people have in the real world, right? I almost kind of see this as like imagine this is like a kid, and when I say a kid, I just mean the of the two, not like an actual child, but the kid of the two. Like try to convince their parent who's older, has really old-fashioned values and won't come around. Like this idea that you almost had them ready to kind of like accept, what they'd been believing all this time was wrong or something. What you apply that to politics, you apply that to whatever. She basically, was turning her boomer father into a more forward-thinking person.
Well, that's exactly what it is. Yeah. It's that he was so set in his ways, and when you think about what Superman represents, and then what Sam Lane represents, as this military figure, this guy that's by the book, and he's still an alien. Like that's what their whole conversation when she tells him is about. To the fact where he's like, well, look, he's actually done some good, right? But you care about this, so now I care about it. And it's really weirdly heartwarming, and I wasn't expecting that going into this book.
Yeah, no, it was great. I left this feeling, and I love the small moment where Renee comes over to her when she's at the gravesite, and just sort of sits with her, doesn't really say anything, just. No. It's like, she's kind of a friend, or even when she, the soldiers try to give her the flag, and Lois just can't accept it, so Clark takes it instead. Like there's just
and then Lucy loses it.
Yeah.
Right later.
Which I'm glad they mentioned her name because I wasn't sure who that was meant to be at first.
Me neither. I was like, oh, did Sam Lane get married to a younger woman?
Yeah, who is this?
Like who's that blonde lady? And then I was like, oh yeah, Lucy, followed in her dad's footsteps. So of course, the military person is gonna be pissed, right? But yeah, no, it was. I mean, yeah, this hit me weird. I was not ready for this. Like going in, I was like, oh, okay, well, this is the Lois and Sam Lane epilogue on their relationship. But I got to stop underestimating Rucka. Like anytime I think it's gonna be something, it's completely different and for the better.
No, it made me care. It made me care. If Alfred gets this, and obviously I already care about Alfred, unlike Sam Lane, but if Alfred gets this kind of epilogue funeral issue and it hits even half as good as this, I will be sort of more accepting of his death, and it'll feel like, okay, we got good storytelling out of it some way. But this was so good, and like that final line, man, like he was almost ready to believe in Superman.
Yep.
Is such a good line.
It's really, really good. Good.
Because it's not just about believing in the person; it's about believing in what he stands for and the idea, which is what makes it so good.
It's the idea, right? Yeah. And it's not just the truth and justice, American way gimmick. It's the complete who he is, and defines who he is. But no.
And this was something that has kind of defined Lois's life ever since she encountered Superman, and kind of changed her for the better, and been something that completes her. And the idea that her father just couldn't see it and couldn't understand it, and
well, I always love the relationship too. I love how he's the military guy, and yet she's the reporter that's always trying to dig through stuff, and she almost becomes a reporter despite her dad. I don't know if that's actual canon or if that's my own head canon.
I mean, it sounds kind of...
it sounds Lois, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, at the very least, this idea she wants to fight that kind of thinking, even if it's not directly because she wants to do it to piss off her dad,
Right.
It makes some sense. But it's one of those things where the Sam Lane trope of him coming in and being kind of anti-Superman is used so often in comics and TV shows and whatever, that ultimately becomes just this kind of generic plot point that happens every so often that we just kind of expect. It doesn't really matter much to us anymore. And I think... No. In a weird way, and I'm not saying this justifies every sort of needless story we've had of it, but like, I think one of the things that happens, in real life when someone dies is that, a lot of what you know about that person is because of repetition, because people in real life do repeat things a lot, they repeat actions a lot. So it doesn't justify it, but having, read a bunch of Sam Lane stories where he's anti-Superman, having seen stories with Sam Lane being anti-Superman, it kind of gave this a bit more weight. It was like, he was always that, and he was willing to maybe change. And then he died, and it hurts.
Yeah, pre-Flashpoint, this is a person that used experimental technology from Lex Luthor to turn his daughter into Superwoman. Lucy Lane. Like that was a plot point through Supergirl. I think that was Sterling Gates. But so to flash to this point, there's been actual progression of the character. And
I can't believe you just said that. Just to flash to this point. We cannot be using that in regular terminology. I can't be having it. Connor's very quiet because he clearly doesn't feel any of these strong feelings.
Until I started this issue, I didn't even know Sam Lane was dead.
So, well, it shows you how much attention he pays to us.
No, I don't. I really don't listen. So I'm not going to pretend I do.
Thanks for being honest.
But that's the thing. Like, while I can see the craft here, none of it hit me because I didn't even know he was dead until I started reading this. So I didn't even have time to process. I was like, oh, I guess Sam Lane's dead. And then the whole issue was about that. And some of the beats where I thought could have landed for me, one of the big ones that was actually ruined by the art for me was the flag scene where she can't accept it. her face, Lois's face, when she turns away, when she can't do it, and she looks at Clark. I nearly laughed when I saw it because it just didn't fit at all for me. It just looked so off, and in such a vital moment that like things like that kind of really just.
I don't know. To me, it looks like she's just barely keeping it together.
No, I know what it's supposed to be, but it just didn't. It didn't land for me. So it looked like she's supposed to be, holding back the tears, but it looks like it's this half grin. She's kind of terrified, is what it actually comes across of. That one, I'm saying, that the rest of the issue, it's fine. Like I understand why this is landing for people. I just didn't have the connection to. I didn't have the time to care because I was only just learning that Sam Lane was dead, let alone that we were meant to be mourning him.
I will say, outside of the fact that knowing that he's dead or not, I don't think there's anything in this issue that relies upon you knowing the circumstances of his death. All of it just plays about their history as a father-daughter throughout the DCU.
It does. Like I said, I think it's just I was still processing like, I guess he's dead. So I didn't have time to move on and actually care about what was happening yet. Maybe if I read this in a month or two, I'll like it more.
That was very good. Very, very good. Matt, what are you rating Lois Lane?
I'm going to give this a 9. This hit me, but I'm also Superman Mark, so of course this hit me differently.
Connor, what is the degrader score on the degrader scale?
6.5.
Of course.
I am also going to give it a 9. I thought this was fantastic, and was as soon as I knew it was my book of the week. Like there was no I was going to be surprised if anything else was going to touch it.
As soon as I got done with it, I went, this was good.
Yep.